Hi, everybody. Welcome again to Church on the Line. And we are absolutely honored to have Pastor Ed and Lisa Young with us. They are amazing. They have for many years and still are pastoring a phenomenal church in Dallas, Fellowship Church. I've had the privilege of being there. First time I went there was with Hillsong United, actually. We did a big worship night there. And then recently, before the pandemic, before the lockdown, before COVID, I had the privilege of being there for their 3C or C3 Creative Church Conference. And I love this couple. They're amazing. And so we're gonna ask them some questions about relationships and marriage, and it's going to be good, isn't it?
It's going to be better than good. It's going to be on a whole nother level. And really honored that you guys would for you guys to be with us, and really look up to you guys. You're incredible leaders, incredible people, incredible mentors, and we're really grateful. So thank you so much for doing this.
So a big welcome to Ed and Lisa Young. Yay! Here we are.
Well,
you can hear the crowd online going wild. You can hear people right now are applauding, they're cheering. But here we are, we're on Zoom, we're connecting. I love that we can do that, and I know this is going to bless our church so much. So thank you guys for being with us.
Thank you.
It's a joy. It really is.
So why don't we just start with just some basic questions. Obviously, you guys in the USA, in Dallas, you're experiencing a lockdown season as well. How has that affected your relationship or marriage or family? Has it affected it at all, or is it just business as usual?
I would say first it's affected it because we're together so much more, and there's beautiful things about being together so much more. But also too, when you're together this much, sometimes our idiosyncrasies, boom, can clash. Those little things that kind of get on one another's nerves. But overall, it's been awesome. But you're always going to face those little, that's what I would say, those little things.
Well, and Ed and I have been married for 38 years. So
wow.
We met when we were 15. So
I was 14, she was 15.
I'm a cougar by 3 months.
That's right.
So we, I don't know if that's a popular term in South Africa, but it means that I'm older than him.
Yeah, we understand.
Okay.
We get it.
Okay, so we dated for 6 years and we've been married for 38. So that's like 40 something years together. So you think you kind of have it all dialed in as far as, you can spend a lot of time together and not be surprised by idiosyncrasies, but we still find that those things pop up and you go, oh, wow. And not always is it, oh, wow, in a nice tone of voice, Sometimes it's more on the frustration level. But I think that everybody is probably navigating, Ed's working from home and I'm here. And then we just happen to be in a season where our children, we have adult children, and 2 of them are living with us. We had another daughter that was living with us for a while during the lockdown. And then we've had 2 additional grandbabies added. So we've had our grandson.
Over the last month.
Wow.
So everything for us would be a little different anyway.
Yes.
But then you add all of those things. So it's been, we're figuring out a lot of stuff.
And here's what I would tell young couples. And I love kids. When you have kids, they're awesome. KIDS, keeping intimacy at a distance successfully. Kids. So anyway, a little joke. Yes. But it's true too. You have to plan around that. But anyway.
And that's even if your grandchildren
that's
are
right.
in the house.
But here's the thing I didn't realize. So you sometimes go, okay, we have kids, and then one day they leave the house. But here's what I've discovered. They come back. And that's great, but you have to be ready. I know we have so many 20-somethings and 30-somethings and 40-somethings who are checking this out. When you have kids, they come back, and then when they're adult children, that's parenting on a whole nother level.
And so how have you, when you kind of rub up against each other and it's a bit of tension, what have you guys done to navigate that? How do you deal with that and keep healthy? And yeah, what are your what's your advice, guys? Because we also are feeling the same. Like, it's great. We're all together. We have three
Yes.
kids. They're a bit younger, not married. We love the family dinners. We love the time
Yes.
together. I don't think I've ever had a season where I haven't traveled for this long, just being at home, which is wonderful. But then it's also the tension.
Yeah.
So how have you guys dealt with that or are dealing with that?
We try to keep short accounts, obviously, with God and with each other. So when we like last night, Lisa and I got into a little argument over just some things, and we were watching television, and I like to hum all the time. I don't even realize I'm doing it, but I'm playing the drums. And bum, bum, bum. She said, "Would you please stop humming and playing the drums, because I just do it all the time. I don't even know I'm doing it." And so we,
And I was extremely tired
She was
because I've been,
yes,
kind of pushing the envelope. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I just, I was tired, and I think those are things that you have to look at. So let's say you have a disagreement. I think it's important for couples, if you can set your emotions aside for a second, to back up and look at what are the circumstances around this. So I knew immediately I was really tired. Had just gotten our grandson to bed, navigating some other things with the other two adult children. And I mean, we have more adult children than that, but those were just the two that I was dealing with. And then Ed has had a bad back. His back has been hurting. And so I felt like, all of this was on me, and he's sitting there humming and drumming. And I also was like, yeah, humming and drumming. Now, that seems like a very small...
it's like a hip hop song. Yes. Humming and drumming and humming.
That seems so insignificant. But when you're tired or feeling...
Lisa, I remember what real quick to interrupt.
And we never interrupt each other.
We have a great Christian therapist in our church, and you might have heard this before. He calls it the HALT principle. Are you hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? That's when you gotta halt and take a step back and go, all right, and then you can process those things. And of course, we apologized to one another this morning. We did.
Usually we try before bedtime
Yes.
to do that. Both of us were so exhausted last night. It was like,
Yeah.
gone. But that's a real tough thing for people to set their emotions aside and to look realistically at what is the issue. What is the real cause? You know what? Ed has been humming and drumming our entire lives. So it just happened that last night is a little much.
It just finally got to you after 38 years of marriage.
Phil, after 40 some odd years, she just lost it. She went over the edge.
I even mentioned that as a significant...
It's not significant,
rift,
but...
Because I know people are dealing with financial issues, and right now they're wondering how bills are going to be paid, and are our children going to go back to school in a physical building, or all of these different things that are so much more serious than that. But I think it's important, but as we do deal with things that are serious, we also deal with things that are just like annoying.
Mm-hmm. And I've heard this too, and I believe this. I think that all of the marital difficulties are reoccurring. Usually, if you look at your life, Lucinda and Phil, I guarantee it, the disagreements you have are usually just the same, and we have to, again, step back and look at this and go, okay, I'm going to zoom out, and we're going to handle this, the way God wants us to, because, quite frankly, if Jesus isn't Lord of your marriage, obviously of your life and your marriage, then I just don't see how you can have a flourishing marriage.
Because he's the source of our
Yes,
reconciliation.
he is. All we have to do is take a look at the cross and go, wow, look at his grace and mercy. Look how much he's forgiven me. So I should rush to forgive her. And I believe, too, the man should be the initiator of reconciliation. Now, I know sometimes
My wife
Sometimes it's
started
I'm not-
nudging
I
me.
started nudging
I
him
was getting
on
a
that
lot
point.
of nudging then.
That's a good one.
I believe that, though. I do. I really do, because the word husband is house band. It means the husband should band the home and the family. He should be that provider, that nurturer, that reconcilier. I just made that word up. Reconciler.
I like the other way. You know, I mean, it's COVID. You can make up new words, and people are accepting
Yes.
of it in this season.
Yeah.
If you say
But-
it with authority, you're okay.
But you know, successful marriages navigate the same issues that unsuccessful marriages do. They just do it God's way. So it can be done. And marriage is not always the easiest thing. Sometimes it's the hardest thing, but it can become the greatest thing if you're willing to work. I call it, and I've written about this, the marital work ethic. The MWE, the marital work ethic. What you use to get her or get him is what you use to keep him or keep her.
And you guys, I know you have written extensively and taught a lot on relationships and on marriage. And
Yes.
you know, that's kind of, you know, as we were doing this series where we're talking about relationships, we're calling it Acts in August, Acts of Love. How do we relate to each other and do it in the way that's healthy and, you know, understanding God's principles? Why was it so important to you to write about it, to teach on it? Was it from your own experiences? And in particular, you're like, man, we got to deal with this ourselves? Or was it just looking at how many people are dealing with issues like this? What was the driving force behind that?
That's a brilliant question. My opinion would be it has emerged from our lives that we have dealt with, struggled with, and had victory and have victory over. Also, too, the kaleidoscopic range of people that we've dealt with who keep bringing these same issues up. That would be my answer.
Yes, and if you look at Christianity, compare a Christian worldview as opposed to a non-Christian worldview, and you look at marriages, the statistics sadly are not that different. And so as far as relational challenges, divorce rate, families who are struggling, and so trying to lead people to go toward God's way and to say, you know, you would be tempted to quit at this point. You would be tempted to say, oh, it's not worth it. If you understand the priority of marriage, and that's something that I think many people, if not most people, enter into the union of marriage without understanding the huge importance, the representation that marriage is a representation of Christ's love for the church, a husband's love for his wife, and a wife's love for her husband. So we need to make clear to others, this is a big deal, and it's worth that work. It's worth the attention. And so often we fall into that trap of giving attention to all these different areas. And Ed and I think came head on into being exposed to people who were just struggling, and they were having a hard time. And the same thing with us. I mean, 38 years. Fortunately, Ed and I have come from homes that the marriages, you know, lasted and were intact. Now, my personal experience is my mom and dad came close to divorce on several occasions. My mom struggled with depression, both Christ followers, but just really, you know, there were times where as a kid, I wasn't sure that they were going to make it. It was the church and their involvement in the church.
Amen.
And continuing to go back to, gosh, I know it's tempting to quit, but God has something better. And that's how I think Ed and I, with that as the backdrop, just said, people need to see the beauty of marriage, the value of marriage. Recently, or several years back, Ed and I were jogging back when his back wasn't so bad and my knee wasn't so bad. We were jogging in Miami and stopped in a little store to look at some watches. Mm-hmm. And we were going through this certain area and we just stopped, and he and I were laughing, and we walked into the store, and this girl said, "Oh my goodness, what are y'all doing?" And Ed struck up a conversation, and we had just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary. And she just looked at us like, you guys are having fun. I mean, seriously, she thought that was weird, that we had been married 25 years. We were jogging together, shopping together, and we were actually laughing and enjoying one another's company. And that, sadly, is what is going on in our world today. People are really taken aback by a healthy marriage, healthy relationships, and really mirroring what God intended for marriage.
And it's something, though, that takes work. If you think about a wedding, it's so beautiful, so romantic. Little do we think, those of us who officiate weddings, that it could end very, very soon due to all sorts of things, from adultery to verbal abuse to alienation, whatever. So if you think about it, a couple gets married, everything's great, and then they crank out a couple of kids. And suddenly, they don't even really realize it. They put the kids at the center of their marriage, and they revolve everything around the kids. Now, we love kids, but kids leave, spouses stay. So what happens is, many times when you have kids, the mom kind of resigns from her number one position, that of being a wife, and she chases the kids.
Maybe a career.
Okay. The man resigns from his number one position, that of being a husband, and becomes really the father and the I'll chase money or whatever. So you have separation. Then you throw in an attractive coworker or the humdrum of life, and everything is about the kids. Let's get ready to rumble. Then you have to call in the attorneys to clean up the mess. So what we encourage couples to do is to have those date nights, those times of intimacy, those times where you leave your kids and go out by yourselves and have a good time. Because one of the best things you can do as a father or a mother is to date your spouse. Date night, mate night. Date your spouse.
Now, in quarantine, that's tough.
That is.
But you can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think I'm actually feeling guilty right now because we have two teenagers and one 20.
Yeah.
Two teenagers, one 20-year-old.
Yeah.
Just out of teenage, and I feel like that's so often I find myself running around the kids, and then Phil gets the leftovers, and so I'm feeling
happen, yes.
I'm feeling like I should repent right now.
No,
thank you. That's very wise words. Thank you, guys. It's amazing.
But I would say too, in one of our books, Kid CEO, I don't
even think it's in print anymore. We're going to rewrite it.
I'm going to rewrite it. But in other words, one of the best things parents could do is go home and fire their kids, because their kids have the corner office. Their kids have all the perks. The kids are running the show, and they're not made to run the show.
Yeah.
So we fire them and put them in the right position, and it becomes marriage centric, and then kids. And obviously sometimes you have to put your kids above your spouse with needs and things, but by and large.
But it's just for a brief moment.
So goes the marriage, so goes everything else.
Yeah, because I did notice that you wrote a book that was called How to Keep Your Children from Running Your Life. And I saw that title and I thought, I'm going to ask you guys about that, because I thought that was such a perfect topic.
With marriage, and then especially with our daughters just having babies, we have a granddaughter that's 3, a grandson that's 2, and then newborns that are just within a month of each other. And so both of those couples are figuring out how to keep that marriage balance, but yet they're in a time where the babies are demanding. They're very demanding. I mean, they're waking up during the night. They have seen, though, Ed and I navigate that. We had 4 children, 3 of which were under the age of 3 at one time, and twins were the last. And so I remember, I mean, it was just like a blur. But I took them to the pediatrician, and she, who was so wise, and she has no idea what this statement meant, she looked at me, and I guess you were with me, and she said, "Have you guys been on a date night?" Now, the twins were probably 5 weeks, 6 weeks old.
Yeah.
And we were like,
I was like, what's that?
What?
I did that before we got married. You mean you do that after you get married?
and so she said, "I challenge you guys to go out. You've got a hectic life. Your kids are going to be fine." And it required work. I mean, both of them were, one of them.
To go out on a date.
To go out on a date. They were on different formulas. Mm-hmm. One of them had a stomach issue, so she had to be on one formula. So I had bottles labeled. I mean, I labeled the back of their shirt so that you would know which one was baby A and which one was baby B. It was chaotic. And then our son, who was 2.5 when they were born, he had special needs. So we had a real challenging time. And I'm hoping and praying, and I do believe that our kids saw us from a young age, when they were young, put that marriage first. And they cried when we would get a babysitter or we'd leave them with the grandparents. They would cry, "Mommy, Daddy." And you know what we did? We'd order pizza, and that was a special thing for them. And then we would go out, and when we got back, they would see, oh, they just leave for a little bit. It's okay. It's all right if they cry. It's better that they cry for you to go out on a date than they cry for you to be crumbling in your marriage.
Whoa.
That's where the tears matter.
Drop the mic.
Yeah.
So you have to teach them. And now Ed and I are seeing how this is being modeled with our children. They are now adult children doing it. And it's one of the greatest blessings that we have.
And our definition of parenting, which we've written about extensively, parenting is teaching and training your kids to lead. Teaching, Deuteronomy 6, training, Proverbs 22, to leave, Genesis chapter 2. Teaching and training your kids to leave, to individuate. Yeah. But obviously, they all, they come back and your family.
Yeah, but they're just here for a little bit.
That's right.
But I think the goal is, you want to create humans who make good decisions when you're not there.
Amen.
Who love God. Yes. And I like, the more I look at it as a parent, it's not always how they behave when I am there. It's how they're going to behave when I'm not there, when they leave, because they will. And like you say, maybe they'll come back, but they're going to leave. They're going to have to be accountable for their own actions as they get older. And so I've got to allow that to happen, lead, teach in a way that enables that to happen, be an example that allows that to happen. But if they're just behaving a certain way when I'm there, then, I'm not really helping them for what they're going to need in the future.
Yeah.
That's truly Phil Dooley.
But you've said that too, in regards to leadership of the church.
Yes.
The health of a fellowship church or Hillsong is measured more by your absence than your presence. Yes. What's going on when you're not around? What's happening, when you are traveling, and how that is. Well, it's the same with parenting. Like you just said, when you're not around, what are they doing?
And do you mind if I give you just a quick hip hop song? It's like 20 seconds, and I encourage parents. Okay, I encourage parents to become hip hop artists. Just go Jay-Z on your kids when they're rebellious. And I wrote this a while back. It goes, let me see. If they're rebellious, just go, "I'm the parent. I'm legit. There's no use arguing. You might as well quit. You can roll your eyes and say it's not fair. You're telling God you really don't care. So do what I say all the time. Then your life will have serious rhyme all the time. Peace of mind."
That
Yes. And we have sung that to our children.
I love that. No,
Hey,
that
that is too good.
Now, can I just want to ask a question about you guys specifically because Ed, you are just hilarious. You are creative. You've done this conference for many years, which has helped pastors, leaders, and people beyond the church in regard to creativity. And that's just who you are. And but then I look at Lisa and I see Lisa, who is just strong, stable, just keeping it together, and I'm just looking at the dynamic there, and you know how they often say kind of opposites attract, and I've watched you even in your own conference and the way you guys in a panel, you know how you respond, Ed, and you'll be like into this, and Lisa's just bringing it all the right back to, some really, just kind of stable, good wisdom. And how has that played out? Like in your marriage, how have you guys dealt with the differences that you've brought into that, both in personality and probably also in family life, because we come from different families and different expectations?
Wow.
That's a
so
brilliant,
great.
again, another brilliant question. We try, and I think we do a good job of this, of celebrating our differences and not being negative about our differences, but there's always that temptation to try to make each other into who we think the other one should be, So Lisa read a book years ago about marriage, God Change Me.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of part of it. What would you say to that great question?
So this is the thing. We come from separate families. Our families are very different. We have the common denominator of Christ.
Yes.
Because my family of origin Christian, Ed's family of origin Christian, but very, very different. And I'll use an illustration. Ed and I were dating and going on a family vacation with his family. And so we were getting ready to leave. His parents said, okay, we're going to go. We were driving probably 3 hours in Texas. And we all get in the car and we start off about 4 hours past the time that we said we were going to leave. Just late. Then we got separated. Now, this was back before cell phones, navigation on your phone. I mean, we were just flying solo, so to speak. They're in their car, we're in our car, and we got separated.
Zero plans. I'm talking
zero plans whatsoever.
Yeah.
And eventually we rendezvoused back at the house so now we're like 6 hours delayed on going on this little vacation. My family, my dad would order maps from AAA, which is a corporation that kind of helps with your travel plans. He would have a highlighted route. He would have alternate routes in case there was delay for traffic or whatever. Plan, if we said we were leaving at 7 a.m, we would probably leave at 6:30. It's so different. You bring those two together, and I'm just thinking God is smiling and laughing and going, look, Peter, look what I did with this family. Look at this. Just the angels, everybody's laughing at this new dynamic because we brought such differences. And that's just one little aspect of the differences that we brought together. So and in the beginning when you're dating, it's like, oh, he hums, he sings.
That's so cute.
He drums on the steering wheel when we're driving on a date. And it's so cute. And then after you're in it for a couple of years, you're like, would you please stop drumming? But it goes back to zooming out and looking at, okay, we are different. I cannot expect Ed to see things through my lens as far as my family and my heritage. He can't expect me to see that in him. However, we can celebrate differences because, especially through that Christian lens, that God created us unique and different. But obviously, where I think it gets
muddy.
Well, no, clear.
Clear.
Yeah, muddy clear. where we look and go, okay, God, I can learn, like I've learned to relax, to not have as many plans. And when things don't go quite the way I think they should, I can just go, oh, well, guess what? We got to do something different. And I hope that Ed looks at me and goes, you know, it might be good to have like a real thought out, like A, B, C, D. And yeah, if I said I want to, see, Ed is like that with your work so more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But when you're in the family, you just have to bring it together. And I guess, I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but otherwise it can be very divisive.
No, that's amazing, Lisa. Thank you. Very, very, very wise. I'd love to also ask you this question. Obviously, 38 years. Amazing. Well done. We take our hat off to you guys. 5 children. One you mentioned.
Well, but now we have 4 children.
4 children.
3 of those 4 are married. So we have 2 son-in-laws, 1 daughter-in-law, and 4 grandchildren.
Amazing. And you've run the church, and I looked, looks like you've written over 30 books.
We've written a lot.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But
You've co-authored books together.
Yes.
How have you grown in capacity to do everything that you've been doing over the years?
How have we what? Grown?
How have you grown in your capacity? Maybe you could speak into that. How do you grow into that? Or how have you done that successfully over the years?
You mean, how have we discovered our capacity or
like how have we made, I think this is what, how have we
How have you managed
been
to do all of that well?
Oh, okay. Here's
Should I ask the question
one.
again?
Here's a one word answer, Lucinda. No. Yes. No. We say no all the time. No, because there's a bigger yes behind the no. So that 2-letter word, no. Know your no's because of bigger yeses. So what I figured out and what Lisa and I have discussed and figured out is this. As far as from what I'm doing, the main thing I do is leadership and preaching. That's pretty much it. Even when our church started, when we were the only staff members, I just delegated things away. Now, when you delegate, you have to investigate. But I have tried to say yes to the big yes. The big yes, of course, is God's authority and the lordship of Jesus Christ. That's the first one. The second yes is yes in marriage. That's the most important human relationship I have. It's not the kids. The Bible never says that Jesus loved the church. We're to love the church like our kids.
Yeah.
It says does that make sense what I said?
Remember.
Let me see. I think, okay. Yeah, the only relationship that's analogous to Christ's relationship to his people is that of marriage. It's not parenting. So I've said yes to God, yes to marriage, and then yes to being a parent. Then after that, I would say yes to the church. But with the church, just those few things. So only do what only you can do. That's how I would say it. And that would be my answer. And don't be ashamed or don't apologize for saying, no. I say no. The bigger the church has gotten, the more no's I say. Like opportunities to speak or doing this or traveling here or whatever. I do some of that and love it, but I know my no's.
And Ed has helped me with this because I am a people pleaser. I want to please and say yes to everybody. Oh, well, sure, because they have needs.
Mm-hmm.
And if I say all of those yeses, I'm going to be saying no to the top priorities. And so I have to reserve my yeses for Ed, for our children, and then, as God allows me to use those gifts in the church.
And that question's so great, though, because if you think about it, most people engaging in this, if I said, okay, write down your priorities in one column, most of us would have the same priorities. But then if I said, okay, write down your commitments in another column, whoa, those would be different. So there's a delta, a gap between our priorities and our commitments. So we have to ruthlessly go through those things and say, okay, do these commitments, and many commitments are good, do they underscore and highlight the yeses as far as God's priorities in my life? And then you have to just ruthlessly remove them, the commitments to simplify your life. So it's the commitments that whack us. It's not the priorities.
And I would just add to that, right now in this pandemic, there have been a lot of opportunities stripped away. This is a perfect time to reevaluate your priorities and your commitments, because you're not able to go to every sporting event. You're not able to go here, there, and yonder on a vacation. We have been kind of brought back, and God, we know throughout the Bible, uses good things and bad things to help us grow in our walk with Him. So yes, the pandemic is a horrific thing and it is challenging, but what is God showing us as far as realigning ourselves with His purposes, His priorities, and then letting those commitments go? Even watching online, you know, how people are having to watch online, that is a priority that has to be achieved through commitments. Oh, what times are available? I'm going to set aside that time to be in church in my home, in church watching online, because that's the number one thing that I need this week. So I just think that God is using this pandemic to bring us back. And again, He doesn't cause it. He doesn't, want us to be experiencing horrible things, but He does allow things to be used for His glory.
It's like we have these matching bracelets. I don't have them on right now, but we made them for each other. And it says on the bracelet, it doesn't say love. It doesn't say, sexy or happiness. It says commitment. And commitment really is love on a whole nother level, because commitment means to pledge yourself to a position no matter what the cost. And of course, that's love. I understand that, love and commitment, but feelings will flow like the tides. And I know Phil knows more about tides than I do, being a world-class surfer. The tides, high tide, low tide, there's certain breaks, etc. So our feelings ebb and flow, and we have to celebrate our feelings, validate them, yet run our feelings through the filter of a Christian worldview, through the filter of Scripture and through prayer and Christian friends. And that's going to help in a marriage, especially to navigate low tide, high tide, or slack tide. And that's why it's all about the church. Here's the church, there's the steeple, open the doors and see all the reconciled people and all of those who are married, and we can support one another and help one another and love one another.
Amazing.
Yeah, wow. Look, guys, we have just learned so much. Appreciate you guys so much. And just having the opportunity to ask you guys some questions and receiving some great wisdom from all of your years of navigating marriage, navigating family, navigating now grandkids, building church, doing all of that. We just want to say we love you guys and we honor you, and thank you so much for sharing, real, honest, vulnerable. I love hearing, we love hearing the real stories, the real, because that's, we all face this. It doesn't matter whether you're in ministry, whether you're a pastor, whether you're a public figure, or whoever you might be. We all have these same things to deal with, and so I think you've just helped us so much, guys. And we look forward to seeing you again in the flesh and hugging.
That's right.
And
That's
doing
right.
all those
That's
things
right.
that we
Right.
Yes.
yeah, it's virtual hugs right now.
That's right.
But maybe just one, you guys, one final thought that you would say to couples, to marriage, to family, just one foundational truth that you believe is essential.
You go first.
I would say lean into the Lord, because our relationship is like a triangle. And, if you're on one side and your husband's on the other, the closer you get to God, the closer you're going to get to one another. And so every challenge, every difficulty, every high and celebration that you have in marriage, when God is at the center of it all, it truly is a whole nother level. It truly is the best that we could possibly experience. So lean into the Lord in all things. When you don't feel like it, feelings are fickle, but that commitment to Christ and your commitment to your marriage is the number one thing.
I would have to say TLC. Every day, a touch, and it's amazing how many times Jesus touched people in the Gospels. A touch, a look of affirmation, because the eyes are the windows of our soul. And when I look at Lisa, I see reflected back who I really am. And when she looks at me, she sees reflected, she should, who she really is, someone who's a believer. So a touch, a look, and conversation.
I thought you were going to say cash. Because that's
that's funny. Maybe it is. No, but it's conversation.
That works.
It does. A cash, conversation, community, activity. No, but that conversation that you need to have, and I call it the sweet 16. If you can have 16 minutes with your spouse of uninterrupted conversation every day, touching, looking, and conversing, you'll go to a holy nada level.
You guys are the best. We love you. Thank you so much,
Love
Ed
you
and
guys
Lisa
too.
Young. And you've got a new book, Ed, about viruses, about fear, the fear virus.
The fear virus. Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that.
It's on Amazon, and I think I happen to have one right here.
There it is.
So
there it is.
And Phil, the audio portion, I even use my sound effects, because when I speak, I always use sound effects. And as I was reading this, I just told the publisher and everybody, I'm going to use my sound effects. So I have different voices, different, like we have woo, woo, ah, 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 oh, oh, oh. All that. I even have a voice for Simon Peter. I'm Simon Peter. I'm the fisherman. That's his voice.
That is absolutely amazing. I love it. So
one voice, the Apostle Paul, kind of sound like Brian Houston. I kind of did his voice.
That's the best. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much. And I think that is going to bless so many people. You guys are a blessing. And we really appreciate you. Love you. We're praying for you in Dallas. May God keep blessing you guys.
We're going to see you very soon, sooner than later.
Amen. All right. Bless you guys.
God bless.
Bye.